It's time for the Wrestling News Update with Raj Giri.
We're going to jump right into it, Raj. We sort of thought this announcement was going to come eventually, but now it's here. WrestleMania 43 is official. Saudi Arabia, here we come, 2027. What do you make of this?
It's like we mentioned last week. It's not my favorite. I do kind of equate it to the Super Bowl being held overseas and taking place in the morning. It just doesn't feel right. I'm not a fan of it. I know there's a ton of money involved. You got the Royal Rumble going there early next year, so I get it from a fiscal point of view, but as a fan, I'm not a fan of it.
Well, it is official, and we're excited to hear, when we can learn more. What does this mean? Is this going to be the only WrestleMania, or will there be a second WrestleMania? I bring that up because we know a few years ago there was the regular Royal Rumble, and then there was the greatest Royal Rumble, or whatever they called it. But they haven't at least framed this the greatest WrestleMania or the Super WrestleMania or any sort of silly nomenclature like that, Raj. Do you think they do wind up making this the only WrestleMania, or do you think they wind up doing two that year with a domestic one?
Yeah, this is it. So, Turkey Al-Rashid, who's responsible for basically all these big sports coming to Saudi Arabia now, they want the WrestleMania. They don't want two WrestleManias in 1 year. They want the WrestleMania, the one show, and they're getting it. So there's not going to be two. This isn't the greatest WrestleMania Backlash. This is it. So for that year, in the U.S. at least, theoretically, SummerSlam, unless it's held in Toronto or something, will be the next biggest show in the U.S.
Eric, when we saw this announcement video played for the fans who were in attendance for WWE shows last weekend, they were overwhelmingly booed, and they even solicited "you sold out" chants. And as we're seeing footage here, or stills with us over at 83weeks.com, I think the press conference had no press there. And this has been like a 45-1 thumbs down versus thumbs up ratio on social media. So there's been a lot of backlash is what the point I'm trying to make here, Eric. And I'm wondering, why don't you think we saw anything like this with the announcement of Royal Rumble? Is it because WrestleMania is that big of an institution relative to Royal Rumble? What do you think, Eric?
I think a part of it is just exactly what Raj pointed out. Looking at it like I do, I think Raj and I feel the same way. WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl. And I'm not a hardcore NFL fan. I don't really start paying attention until about halfway through the season. I'll pick up a game here and there. If the Steelers are playing and I've got it on TV, I'll check it out if the weather's shitty. But if the weather's nice, I'm not really watching football until November, December. But the Super Bowl, I'm a very peripheral NFL fan, but I will have a plan for the Super Bowl. Most people do. And because it's such a part of our culture, I think a lot of the negative reaction we're getting has a lot to do with our culture. We don't, just like Raj said, you don't want the Super Bowl played in London or in Munich or in Buenos Aires. You want the NFL somewhere in the United States because it's part of our culture. It's our history. It's our diet. It's who we are as Americans from a cultural perspective, a part of it. So there's a resentment that a big part of our American product is now going to be shared overseas. Let's be honest and add to the fact that it's Saudi Arabia, because there's still a certain segment of the audience, and they're loud about it, because now we're crossing over into politics, and we all know how politics are, which is why we try to avoid them on this show, because it's now gotten incendiary. You can't really have a conversation that involves politics without the shit around you catching on fire. But a part of it is the politics of this. So between the fact that I think we just feel like, wow, this is us, and we don't get to have it because these other guys are getting it, that's natural human nature. Add to that the political challenges that come with this, and you've got controversy. You've got people booing. You've got thumbs down. You're going to get that reaction. The same way they got reaction when they first announced they were going to be going to Saudi Arabia. Same thing happened. So it's not unexpected. It's anticipated. It'll be uncomfortable. And then people will get used to it. And they'll watch it. And they'll probably have more fun than they think. Because there's a lot of value in watching WrestleMania during the day as opposed to the evening. For me personally, it's really beneficial to watch it during the course. I can have more fun. I can enjoy it more during the day, as opposed to being up at 1 o'clock in the morning, barely able to stay awake watching. So people get used to it. They'll adjust, and eventually it really won't be that big a deal.
Raj, I'm going to draw a silly parallel, but once upon a time, Jim Crockett Promotions pulled Starrcade away from Greensboro. And that happened in 87. They went to Chicago. It was a disaster. And a lot of people point back and say, man, that's where they lost the fans who were so supportive of Starrcade. Obviously, this is a much bigger scale. Do you think there is potential backlash? Are they headed for a PR problem? Will they lose faith with fans? The idea that WrestleMania is not just leaving America, but North America and going somewhere rather controversial like Saudi Arabia?
I think the fact that they made the announcement so far ahead of time, it's a year and a half, as Eric noted, as we get closer and closer to the event, people will just get more used to it. And I think by the time it comes, people won't be happy with it, but I think a lot of the initial backlash will have subsided. So, I do think that TKO in general, I think they need to be a little more careful with some of the things they say. When you had TKO COO Mark Shapiro, that basically criticizing for making tickets affordable to families, that was a choice. That was interesting. And it was at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference. But stuff like that gets out there to the wrestling sphere. And maybe they don't realize that with a lot of the other sports and things that they promoted in the past. But that stuff gets out there to wrestling fans. And even though they're speaking to, industry leaders about industry trends and strategy, they need to be careful about that kind of verbiage because it does turn fans off. And granted, most of the fans that go to the arenas that watch on TV are probably not as in tune to the wrestling news and are paying attention. But it does create, a little backlash, and I think they need to be more careful of it. I don't think this particular WrestleMania being in Saudi will hurt them at all. I think, the first Saudi event had no effect, and that one was way more controversial.
Yep.
So I just don't think it'll have an effect at all.
I'm curious to hear the amounts that we think. There's been speculation that, I guess we should back up on this. We know through court filings and more importantly, shareholder information that's been made public that WWE is receiving or has received roughly $50 million per Saudi event. Raj, last week on the show, before this news was ever confirmed, you suggested that it would probably be a multiple. And the number we've heard floated around is $250 million. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. Raj, do you have a feel on that? Is it really 250?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds high. I mean, when you look at we don't know what this past year's WrestleMania did as far as the gate. We just know it was higher than the previous year's WrestleMania, which was about $39 million. This year's WrestleMania did get a $5 million site fee. So you add those together and then, just round up a little bit and just say 50 million is what they make in the US for WrestleMania from the gate and site fees. And then that's what a normal Saudi event gets. And so now it's going to be not only a regular WrestleMania in Saudi, but also 2 nights. Man, 250, it's higher than I would think. I would think probably more around 150 to 200, but 250 wouldn't surprise me. And when you think about that, that's 5 times more than they would make for a WrestleMania in the US, at least.
We should mention that as crazy as these numbers sound, Eric, I don't know if you saw, but this past Monday night, it was revealed that Saudi Arabia is going to host a flag football game with former NFL legends, chief among them perhaps Tom Brady. There's been lots of speculation about what the total offer is. I can't believe this is real, but I've heard a rumor that it was $1 billion. I don't know if that's the actual number. But Dave Portnoy revealed earlier this week, Eric, that for a single flag football game, Tom Brady will make $75 million and never get hit, just run around. And if someone would normally hit him, just take a little yellow string off his waistline. And then they drop the wire, Eric, $75 million. I guess what I'm saying is whatever potential heat that WWE is going to face here, this feels like the new norm with sports. I mean, we've seen mega boxing events there. We've seen mega MMA events there. We've seen golf there. Now, if Tom Brady, the poster boy, the face of the NFL for the last 2 decades plus, I think the heat, this will just become new normal by 2027, Eric. Do you agree with that? And what do you make of this report that Brady's going to make $75 million for one flag football game?
I just think it's cool as hell. It's awesome. I mean, what a world. What a freaking world. It's great. And I do, it's like Raj and I, thematically, we're on the same page. Yes, people are going to bitch. Yes, you're going to get, social media blowback, blah, 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 blah. But people will forget about it. They'll get used to it. They'll become numb to it. They'll find something else to rage about, and it'll become accepted. But I think, as you pointed out, Conrad, between golf, car racing is kind of a big deal over there. It's F1, that kind of shit. It's really big over there. Flag football, WWE, you're probably going to see more and more and more sports in Saudi as time goes on. And the negative reaction will become more and more muted. It won't matter.
Raj, if you had to forecast, I mean, listen, let's just be honest. There's no way they're going to be able to sell tickets in Saudi Arabia and cover this flag football game. There's also no way they'll be able to sell tickets and cover the gate of potentially 250 million, which I agree with you. When I first heard, I thought, well, that's ridiculous. It's not that amount. But then when you hear one quarterback for one game, 75 million, you start to think, well, maybe we'll see. Who knows what's real and what's not? But I'm saying all that to say, do you think this will be priced in any way affordable for American wrestling fans? I mean, the cost of travel there is crazy, but we're already seeing pressure on ticket prices. Is this going to be something that has any American fans, do you think, or will this be primarily targeting Saudi citizens?
Well, I think, this is part of the Riyadh season, the 300th anniversary of the first Saudi state. I could see them wanting tourists to come. I mean, this event and these events that they're doing, the Tom Brady flag football, they made a huge offer to Tiger Woods to be a part of Live Golf, which he turned down. But again, these offers aren't to become profitable. They're to spread awareness, of the country and, whatever you want to call it. But that's really what it's there for. So I think I could see them not really pricing tickets all that high because, again, it's not about making money for this event. It's to get people out there. It's to get people traveling and coming into the country. So I actually don't think the tickets will be that expensive. I think they'll be cheaper than Vegas. I mean, we'll see, but that would be my guess.
I'd love to go over as a fan. I wouldn't necessarily want to be behind the scenes and all that because that's hectic. It is stressful and don't need to be near that. But I'd like to go as a fan, just experience it from a fan's perspective. I think it would be eye-opening culturally. It would be such a fascinating thing to experience.
Have you been to Saudi Arabia before, Eric?
I have not, which is one of the reasons why I'd love to go. I've been to Qatar or Qatar. You can take your pick. I've been there and really enjoyed it. Had a great time. But I would love to go to Saudi.
Raj, have you been to Saudi before?
No, and I'm kind of with Eric. I'd be kind of interested to go because I've never been to that. We've traveled all over, but I've never been to that part of the world. So,
Raj, if you go, I'll go.
I was going to say the same thing. Let's go and let's do a live 83 weeks from Saudi Arabia. Why not?
Yeah, see, now we're taking an idea and giving it some gravity. I like it.
I do too.
Seriously consider that.
Well, it will be fun to see what shakes out there. But I want to pose this question to you, Eric, because even like in our live studio audience, because we allow our supporters at adfreeshows.com to become a part of the backstage live recording experience. And Michael's with us here, and he says, as a fan, he's talking about WWE to Saudi Arabia, doesn't feel right. But as a person who owns a minimal amount of stock, I like it. And I think that's an interesting perspective because, and I want your take on this, Eric. Booker T on his podcast earlier this week addressed this controversy where fans weren't happy about the idea of WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. But he started to talk about the business end of it and how much revenue would be there. And he knows that a lot of the guys that he's friends with, the former legends, they're going to be upset because they're missing a WrestleCon payday. And that's normally one of the biggest weekends for those talent. But he said, and I thought this was an interesting question, Eric, if you were a businessman, what would you do? And I like that Booker put the onus back on the people who were being critical. Like, hey, if this was your business and you had an opportunity to make a multiple, what would you do? When you frame it that way, I think the answers get a little easier. What say you, Eric?
Well, they not only get easier, but what if not only are you a business owner, but you're a business owner that is legally responsible to make the best decisions you can for the people that own stock in your company? Because if you don't, they can sue you. So, yeah, it changes things. When you're a publicly held company, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders to maximize financial opportunities for the benefit of your shareholders. That is you have to do that. That is your job when you take a job for a public company, especially if you're an executive, senior management. So I get it all goes back to the very beginning. Do I understand why people are going, man, I don't like it? Sure. But from a business perspective, as Booker T pointed out, Raj certainly would know better than I, it's a good business decision. It has some risk, goodwill risk associated with it, but you can calculate that risk. You know it's coming. You've had it before. How badly did that negative public opinion actually hurt your business? Did like a bunch of whiners on the internet wrestling community, chat rooms, and Dave Meltzer and people all have their rage and their meltdowns about it? Sure. How did it affect the bottom line? Oh, it didn't. Well, then who gives a fuck? You make the best decision you can make for your company and its shareholders, not because of what upsets the internet wrestling community, because they live to be upset. That's their jam.
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Sergio. I'm from Lancaster in California. The motivation behind just following through with this refinance was I have a baby on the way. So just wanted to get everything in order. In the past couple of years, just afraid to pull the trigger, but then it just seemed like the right time to do it. I went to multiple banks, not only the mortgage I had, but then I went to you, and then I also went to several others. And it just seemed like your team, they were just completely honest and outright. Also, all the information was just laid out for me right there and then, answering all my questions in a timely, efficient manner. Diane was just so helpful and above and beyond accessible with both texting and emails and just any information that they needed. She would explain to me what exactly they wanted me to send, and then if there were any issues, she was able to just resolve them pretty quickly, versus other companies that sometimes it would take a couple of days to get some information. We were looking to pay down some debt, also looking into making some improvements to the home, also build up our backyard, do everything, especially for our daughter coming. By doing this cash out, it's a good amount that we're saving, between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, I would say. It helped out tremendously as well. My name's Sergio. I'm from Lancaster, California, and I saved over $1,500 a month with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.